No.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine, Women, and Words. I'm Michelle, and I have a unscheduled co-host with me. And with me, of course, is Diana.
Hello.
And we have our special guest, one of our favorite Wine, Women, and Words alumni, Scott Wilbanks. Thank you so much for coming back.
Hello from New Zealand.
I know, it's so beautiful. You showed me your backyard.
I don't know how much goes
So
up on this. I'm not going to knock my glass of wine over, but okay, this is what we've got going on over here.
I'm coming to crash on your couch. My husband and I, we're going to come and we're going to just crash on your couch and you're not going to get rid of us.
You can have the guest bedroom. What are you talking about? Listen, in the 7 years I've been here, we've invited probably 5 million people to visit, and guess how many people have visited? None.
Okay, 2019, I'm actually, seriously, I will take you up on this in 2019. I'm not allowed to do a national trip next year.
You're more than welcome. We have a lovely guest bedroom. It has its own ensuite. Our house, not to brag, but our house is so charming.
I saw the picture that you posted of your little reading nook, and I'm so jealous of it.
Yeah. That's the master bedroom. The house was built in 1910. It's an old bungalow-style house, so it's all wood and it's clapboard. And we have these. See the flooring? It's all this Cowrie wood flooring throughout the house.
Beautiful.
And then the kitchen is a rebuild, so the kitchen actually has this blonde wood in it. And the house has all these really nice old details that I just kind of corked it up.
Oh, I love the Dr. Seuss above the fireplace. I've never noticed that.
Yeah, that was the wedding present from my parents to Mike and me. That's a Dr. Seuss.
Oh,
love
it.
And can you tell who that is over there in the corner? Can you see it? I can't tell if it's too far away.
I can't see. I think it's a little too far away. Is that Peter Rabbit?
Well, hang on. Let me go get it.
I always have to make them sure.
Now, can you see?
Oh, it's a little boy. Is that you?
No, that's Cap'n. I drew her. So that's what she looked like before she became an orphan.
Oh, that is so perfect.
You drew that.
What's that?
You said you drew that.
Yeah. Hang on. I'll show you some more. Hang on.
Okay, so for those of you listening, this is a really great piece of art. I mean, I didn't know Scott was a visual artist as well as this wonderful author.
I'm going to keep talking. If you hear a crash, it means it fell over.
Okay. So for those of you listening, above his mantelpiece is a wonderful painting and drawing of Dr. Seuss characters. What are they? They're not the Lorex, Michelle. You know what they're called, right? Which ones those are? You're more familiar with the Dr. Seuss period right now than I am.
I know them by sight, but I don't forget I can't remember their names.
Okay, so now this is a magic marker drawing that I did.
Okay.
Think about who that is.
Oh.
Is that Elizabeth?
That's Annabelle Astor.
Annabelle, I got her name wrong. I'm sorry. It's been like, what, 2 years?
Yeah, no, Elspeth. You're close.
Oh, I love it.
That's her friend. So this is Annie.
And you drew that?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so jealous of people who can draw. I love watching people draw.
I did it. Okay, so I have a story behind that. Can I tell a story?
Of course.
Of course.
With magic markers. Okay, so
for those who are listening, it doesn't look like your stereotypical magic marker. It looks like an actual painting. So there's like colors in there. I mean, bloody hell, some people get all the talent.
All right, so many years ago when I was a kid, I had an artistic bent, and I drew all the time. Then I took up painting, and I thought, well, maybe this will be my vocation because I really, really loved it, and I was having success with it, and getting strokes from all the adults in the room and all that kind of stuff. And then I got involved, if you may recall, the last time we talked, with gymnastics, and that became kind of my career. I actually, was on the U.S. gymnastics team. And 6 months before the Olympic trials in 1988, in 87, excuse me, those were the Olympic trials, I had an accident. And for all intents and purposes, I severed my left arm off the elbow. And
Gosh.
yeah, it was pretty, I mean, you can see, they can't see it obviously, but you can see some of the work here, and then the rest of it there. It literally just,
oh man,
off the elbow. And I was stabilized. The accident had happened in Baton Rouge at, what was the name of that stadium? I'm drawing a blank. But what had happened was I had been touring in Australia with the Chinese national team, and then I was flown home for this competition, and I was jet lagged, and I caught a cold on the flight. And while we were warming up before the competition, I was on high bar, and I was warming up these things called release moves. I don't know if you watch gymnastics, but high bar is the event where, well, the high bar, you kind of go around in circles, and then you let go of the bar and you flip around and re-grab it.
Yes.
And I had a series of 3 of them in this routine, and I had warmed up the first one. I caught it. It was called a reverse hecht, and I was doing the second one called a ginger. And as I was doing the ginger, there were 3 little girls down by the high bar, and they took a flash photo of me, and it blinded me.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I missed the bar, and what normally happens when you miss the bar is you just simply tuck and roll, and you land on your back on this crash pad. They call them crash pads, and knocks the air out of you, but it's no big deal. Well, I had a head cold, I was jet lagged, and I just kept diving. And so I dove 14 feet into the ground, and almost all the weight went onto my left arm, and it basically severed it off at the elbow. And I won't even give you all the details. It was kind of gross. But they stabilized me at the hospital there, and then flew me out maybe 3 days later to Houston to the Neurosensory Center to go ahead and complete the amputation. And my parents intervened, and they had brought in a specialist who basically said, no, we're not, we want to try to save it. And the doctor's name was James Bennett, and he was a bit of a big thing. And I was his guinea pig. And he put it back together. It was an 8-hour operation. But the problem was, they found my ulnar nerve wrapped around my arm twice and had been stretched out like maybe 3 or 4 extra inches. And so they assumed that the nerve had severed within the sheath. And there was a lot of nerve damage.
Yeah.
I did not pick up a paintbrush or a pencil again for almost 30 years.
Wow.
I was afraid to. And while I was working on while I was doing a query stage with Lemoncollie Life, the Lemoncollie Life of Annie Astor, I just took a little break, and I wanted to create a storyboard for the novel. And so I just drew this very simple drawing, and I thought, well, that worked. So then the next drawing I did was a little bit more complex, and then the next one was a little more complex than that. And then I started, graduating to these. And like, here's one that I did from Mike.
He always has unique and new art for us every time he comes on.
So that's another magic marker drawing.
Oh my goodness.
Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I call it free falling with Vincent, because I have that parachuter floating into a Vincent Van Gogh landscape.
That is gorgeous.
That's gorgeous.
So anyway, so that was the thing, and and I'm actually doing a little bit of work for the new book, and just kind of slowly putting it all together. But it became a thing. I just, when I need a little bit of a sanity break from the actual writing, I'll draw a little bit, or I'll paint, and they seem to now be finding their ways into my novels.
Now, if only I could find my knitting into my novel. That's my break. Is if I need a visual break to sit down. Sometimes you just need that visual time to just sit down and just not think about the words. For me, knitting. I'll sit down and I will knit and I'll work on a piece and nothing else will enter my mind except making sure I don't slip a stitch. So that's my thing.
Yeah, it's amazingly therapeutic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I taught myself how to knit when Ryan was first deployed. The first time he deployed, he went to Egypt for a month, and I was like, all right, I am here in the middle of Texas. I know nobody. My closest friends are 3 hours away from me. I'm going to teach myself a hobby. I'm going to pick up something new. And so I learned how to knit. I started to teach myself. I was awful. And I just kept reading.
Did you like get a book that says, you know, knit one, purl two, that type of thing, or?
Yeah, that kind of thing. And that's how I taught myself how to knit. And then I just kept practicing and I kept doing it. I remember he came home and I was like, look, honey, I knitted you a bookmark. And he was like, that's a bookmark?
Yes, can't you tell?
This is the biggest bookmark I've got. But yeah, I kept with it and I kept knitting, and Michelle's seen some of my stuff. I think you might have some of my stuff, Michelle.
I do have some of your stuff.
What did she knit for you?
I have a pair of gloves, like the fingerless gloves. Mm-hmm. And he's finally asleep, thank God. And what else did you knit? I think I have a scarf.
Probably a scarf. I'll do a lot of scarves when I'm writing because it doesn't take that much time. And in fact, I've actually got a long-term project that I'm working on, and I'm seeing if I have it nearby. I'm actually working on a patchwork blanket of different purple and green. Let me see if I've got it. Because I feel
so uncreative. I don't have a visual art to speak to in between my writing.
Take care of. My artwork and my books are my babies.
Right now, it's buried underneath about 3 other bins of yarn. Because I mean, if you haven't seen my closet, I've got, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 or 8 plastic bins of different colored yarn. I've got my yarn all separated by color.
Okay.
This is a blanket I've been working on off and on that I've got.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
It's it's still very small. And for those of you listening, it's basket weave, so you might not be able to see it. It's just a simple blanket that I just sit down and knit and do it. And it was funny. I was teaching friends once, and we were at like a little restaurant outside, and I lifted up the blanket because they're practicing their stitches. So I just pick up my work and I pick it up and I start knitting, and then and somebody walks, and then my friends are like, "What are you knitting?" And I was like, "Well, I'm working on this." And I pick it up and I hold it out to them to use it as an example. And somebody walks by and I hear, "Whoa!" And I'm like, "Whoa!" Just this little piece. This is still like, you know, mid-grade for knitting. This isn't like, I see like the really fine stuff, and I'm like, my stuff's not the really fine stuff.
One of my fondest memories of my grandmother was she would knit afghans for us, and I still have my afghan, but she always knitted them in a like that V configuration.
Yes, yeah, I've got one that was my husband's grandmother's that she did.
Very cool. Was it the same thing? Was it that kind of
that kind of stairway zigzag?
Yeah, zigzag thing. And mine was blue and green and black.
Mm-hmm.
So I still, and my brother's was these different colors of burgundy. And my sister's had yellow and something in it. Oh, and you know what? I've got this. So I went to this thing earlier this year to a conference called the Pulpwood Queens Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the criterion or requirements if you go to the conference, and it's a big conference, is you have to have a tiara. Even the authors that speak at the conference have to have a tiara, and I didn't have one. So one of the ladies who came to the conference did one for me.
Oh
my gosh.
Oh, that is like the best thing ever.
It's like one of my favorite things in the world.
That's awesome.
Wonderful. And look, she knitted in the the little rhinestones.
Yeah, and that's some good work there on her part.
Yeah, I just love it. I did a keynote speech and I wore it during the speech.
Okay, so you have to ask, what's everybody drinking tonight?
You start.
Okay. Well, I came across this one randomly at the grocery store, and knowing that you're coming on the show, it kind of made me think of you, Scott. It's called Pie in the Sky.
How wonderful. So, well, what is it then? It's a red.
It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. It's from Australia.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, that's something that Scott would totally say. And it made me think of him and you and all this stuff. And yeah, it's very berry flavored. I'm not used to a cab being so berry flavored.
Well, I am going with the one I always get. Except I got a Shiraz this time, and I get that clean skin. The one that I told you about last time.
Yes.
It's when you got the fancy schmancy wineries with when they get to the end of their allotment or something, they can't create a full allotment. They pool them together, and they create this brand called Clean Skin. And you get it for like a third of the price. And they're always
any of those in France when we were there. So we were just there.
Yeah, so it's a thing. And the thing is, they don't want it to be, since they're kind of mixing they're using the same grape, but since they're mixing their different vintages, they don't want to put a brand name on it, so they give it an esoteric name, and they just call it Clean Skin. And then they all pull together. And
it was it was like a commune where they collected everybody's grapes, and so they made grapes from it. They probably didn't have that. Maybe the other place we went to, it was an independent one. They could have had something like that. That was where I got my mulled wine from.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
Yeah, the noble grape. Okay, Michelle, what wine are you drinking?
I sat down, and then someone crawled into my lap and wouldn't let me get up. So I didn't get the chance to pour wine. So I'm just drinking sparkling water tonight.
Oh, you're making us feel no.
Well, at least Scott and I are drinking alone, so. Yeah.
We'll have a toast too.
And I did just try to pass him off, and as soon as I tried to pass him off, he woke up. So.
How old is he?
He just turned 2. So.
Still looks so good.
Yeah, he's
there's that whole independent mindedness of being 2. My mom called it the terrible 2s. Are you experiencing?
Oh my gosh. To give you an idea, I mean, he's the sweetest little boy in the world, but he's definitely starting to get a little more stubborn. He just, maybe 10 minutes before I started setting everything up, he took me by the finger and led me upstairs and led me into his room. And I thought, oh, okay, maybe he wants to lay down. Maybe he'll go to sleep. So he led me over to his bed, and I sat down in his bed, and then he looked at me and turned around and walked out the room and shut the door behind him. And just left me in his room, sitting in the dark. So,
he did not want you to do the show.
And his, Rich had just gotten home like 10 minutes before that. I was like, well, I guess he just wants alone time with his dad, and he doesn't want me interrupting. So
that's too funny. Oh my God.
Mom, you gotta go away.
Yeah, but I was telling Diana last week. This is my proud mom moment. My daughter Lily had her first feminist statement that you just it was a mic drop moment for her. And she, whoa, yes, like that.
Hold on. It's a little drafty in here. Keep talking, I can hear.
So my mom had bought the kids an electric car that, you know, with the remote control, that they could drive all over the house and scare the dog. And one of the neighbor kids was over, and my mom asked the neighbor kid, Elijah, if he had figured out how the control works. And he goes, yeah, I figured it out. And she goes, oh, well, you're a guy, so you know these things. And then 2 minutes later, Lily goes, here, Elijah, let me do it, because sometimes girls can do things too.
I know.
And I'm proud. I'm like, okay.
How old is she?
She's 3.
Oh, wow. Good for her.
I know. I'm so screwed.
Me showing those administrative skills very early in her education.
And she already knows how to like delegate and negotiate. She is a top negotiator.
You got a little CEO on your hands.
Do you have memories from when you were 3?
I don't know if they're actual memories or if they're just me remembering stories that people have told me about me.
I actually have some.
I have one. I have it's a really bad one. Okay, but you're gonna get a kick out of this, Scott. Okay.
Okay.
So when I was young, my dad went bald very early. And he was, I think, he was maybe 25 when he had me, so he was bald by the time he was 30. And I remember being in my aunt's house, and he used to wear a toupee. And at the time it was just kind of like, you know, they'd really secure it on, so it would be like Velcroed on.
Oh yeah.
And it was the first time I had ever seen him with the toupee. And I remember I kept lifting up the toupee and looking at him and putting it back down. And just couldn't wrap the fact around my dad now had hair.
Yeah.
And it was just so awkward for me. And I remember that. And what I don't remember is my mother telling me that I also tried to put my toys in between it.
Oh, it's just storage. That's all.
Yeah. I can put stuff in there now.
Listen, you have no idea how traumatizing it is to go bald. You just don't.
I can believe it. I know what my dad went through with it. I remember he used to have it sewn on, which is where you actually, they braid the side of the hair in like this little tiny braid, and they sew it on. And I remember I was obviously a kid, and I remember my mother telling my grandmother that he had started doing that. And they're divorced at the time, so my mother, of course, finds this funny. And I remember sitting in the backseat of the car while she's telling my grandmother that, and thinking, wow, I've got the bravest dad in the world. Because I'm thinking he's sticking his head under a sewing machine, and he's having this wig sewn on his head directly into his scalp. He's so tough.
I used to think the same thing when they would tell you that. I used to think the exact thing. Sew it? I was just, I was wigged out by that whole, idea. No pun intended. But I remember when I first found out that I was losing my hair, and it was traumatizing. It was really, really and I found out on Halloween.
I remember you told us the story, yeah.
The worst time to find out. Well, I mean, I guess there could be a worse time, but yeah. And especially when your sister tells you. That was a bummer.
Young, and it's just like, I remember my stepmom was cool with him wearing the toupee because she was like, it gives him confidence. Whatever makes him happy makes me happy. And if this makes him happy. And he wasn't one of those guys who was weird about it where, it would look, he didn't do the comb over. It matched his hair color perfectly. Once he started to go gray, that's when he decided no more.
Yeah. I just, I couldn't deal with any of that. I literally walked into the bathroom, got a pair of clippers, and just buzzed the whole head. One day, I just can't deal anymore. Just buzz it, and I've just buzzed it ever since. So,
my husband, because of the military, his hair gets to maybe about an inch, and he starts freaking out about it being too long. He's like, "Oh my god, I gotta shave my head," because he buzzes his hair, and he's like, "Shave my hair. I've got to shave my head, and it's too much. It's too long." And I'll like talk him into getting it to like I've got him to grow it out to maybe 2 inches, and he's just like, I can't keep it down. I've got cowlicks. I can't do this. I can't do this. And he like goes into panic mode.
Rich is gonna be the opposite. He's counting down. I mean, he still has at least 6 years left. But he's already said it. The first year when I'm out, I'm not getting a haircut. I'm not shaving for a year. And
Ryan stopped shaving. That was the thing that he did. He stopped shaving. I love guys with facial hair, and I married a guy who was in the military who couldn't have facial hair, and it was just
the saddest thing in the world.
I keep trying to get Mike to grow out his hair. He won't do it. He won't do it. He cuts his hair high and tight, just like in the military.
Uh-huh.
And I am the same. I love beards. He won't grow a beard. He cuts his hair high and tight. He has a really tight little goatee, and that's about it. So
Ryan will keep the goatee, and it isn't a tight goatee. It's a full-on goatee. And sometimes he'll just go full beard because he just gets lazy, and I'm okay with it. I don't care if he shaves or not. As long as he doesn't go lumberjack, I'm okay.
I like lumberjack too. I gotta open this door. It's getting hot in here. Sorry.
I don't like lumberjack. When it first started coming out and being popular, I used to like it. But then I stopped when...
It's getting a little affected these days. People are, this whole beard perfection and, mapping and mowing it and, it's when you, it's getting a little too tidy. And yes.
Yeah,
So.
and there was also this thing that I started to notice where I don't know if it was just the fact that only douchebags wore lumberjack beards or the lumberjack beards made the guys douchebags.
There's probably a correlation in there somewhere.
There's got to be a correlation because I started noticing it, and that was the first major turnoff.
I don't know. Did you come to any conclusions?
Yeah, not yet. I'm still conducting the study.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I need to gather a bigger pool of people. So far, my pool is still very relatively small, including the guy who decided to smack my car as he walked past me on the sidewalk one time. So yeah.
Well, he's definitely in the douchebag column.
Well, where I work, you can't see past the sidewalk, so you have to stick your nose out. And I had stuck my nose out, and the guy, he was coming by, and apparently he didn't like the fact that I stuck my nose out. And I'm cautious because I know what can happen. It's a busy boulevard. And as he walked by, he just smacked the hood of my car and kept walking. And I was like in shock that he actually hit my car. And then the curse words started flowing freely.
Okay. I was wondering because I can remember something happening to me last time I was in San Francisco, and I kind of lost my plot a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco can be there's so much pedestrian traffic in that city, and especially in the area where I stay. I stay in the Castro. My friend Steve lives up on the hill above the Castro in this spectacular house, and Castro has the most pedestrian traffic in the city. And if you are trying to turn right, in the Castro during rush hour, you have to negotiate it. And you basically have to inch your way through because the pedestrian traffic doesn't just go at the light. They overflow into the red light, and you get stuck. In halfway into an intersection where you become where you're in danger of being clipped by another car.
Yeah.
I've had that happen a couple of times, and I actually got out of my car once when somebody did that.
I think there are some cities where there shouldn't be vehicles, like Paris. When I was in Paris, I'm like, okay, I get why they now want to ban vehicles here because it's like San Francisco. It's so pedestrian, and you've got a really great metro, so you don't even really need to take drive.
But San Francisco doesn't. San Francisco doesn't.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they don't.
Paris has an incredible. Paris and London, you can get anywhere. It's like New York. You can get just about anywhere, you know, on the metro, and then walk a couple blocks. It's no big deal. But San Francisco just has that one metro line going down the center of the city, and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it has a couple tributaries, but I mean, you actually do need a car in San Francisco. Well, San Francisco is about as big as a minute, isn't it?
That's
so
true.
If you really want to negotiate this, and you can just walk from one end to the other.
Yeah. Every time I go to San Francisco, I find a place to park my car, and I just walk because I can't handle the hills.
Yeah.
I think one time we went to the Chinese district.
Chinatown.
We had Corolla, Chinatown, and I had my little Corolla with me, which was really old, and we turned a corner, and the hill's like straight up, and my husband looks at me, he's like, I don't think we can make it, and I'm like, well, we're gonna try. And I had my foot all the way to the floor, just trying to make it up this hill.
I know exactly. When I first moved to San Francisco in 1992, I had a Honda Accord, and you know they basically have a lawnmower engine in them. And I'll never forget. I mean, you drive up the hills, and it starts up the hill, and then it just goes slower and slower and slower, and you're not sure you're going to make it, to the crest of the hill. You think you're going to have to get out and push the thing, and I kind of had a little rule, an unspoken rule, that I would not have more than two passengers in my car, because it wouldn't make it up some of the hills if there were four people in the car.
Oh, I can believe it. They're driving through Louisiana. I don't think I will ever drive through Louisiana. Going through over Lake Charles. Have you driven over Lake Charles?
Yeah, well, I'm from Lafayette. Hello.
When we first moved to Texas, we got this bright idea. It was only 7 or 8 hours from Temple to New Orleans. And he still had time. He had 10 days off, and he was like, okay, if you can unpack everything, get the basics set up for the house, and I have 10 days off, let's drive to New Orleans. And I was like, all right, we're going to do this. And the previous dogs I had were like 10-day-old puppies. And we put them in the car with us, and we drove to New Orleans. And it was so freaking long. I mean, and there are miles and miles of bridges where you're at the tops of trees.
Yes,
which for Californian. And then I remember going up, it was 99% positive it was Lake Charles, where it's like a vertical. You're like vertical going over on this.
It's actually pretty amazing, though. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I'm in his old Mustang, and he's asleep in the seat next to me, and I'm thankful that he's asleep next to me because he hates my driving. And I'm just gassing it, trying to go over, hoping that we don't roll back. And I've got some dude tailgating me behind me. And I was just like, New Orleans better be awesome.
When we were in Louisiana, my dad was in that, that Pontiac, the size of a locomotive, phase of his life. So, those Pontiacs they just roar up those.
Yeah.
Those inclines. I mean, I think they could climb a tree. Actually, I mean, the engines are that big. What was the other one he had? It was a Buick LeSabre. Now, I know nothing about cars.
Wait,
my brother.
LeSabre, that was in My Cousin Vinny, wasn't it?
It was the
car for My Cousin Vinny, wasn't it?
No, that is a Friends reference.
Oh, okay. I knew it was something that we watched.
Well, this car apparently had the biggest stock engine in the world in it. And my brother, because it was my dad's hand-me-down car, and I was using it to go to school and to the gymnastics gym where I would train, because that was on the other side of town. And my brother would say, if anybody asks, tell them it has a 455 4-barrel. So that's what I would say. Oh, yeah, it's got a 455 4-barrel. People go, ooh, because apparently that was like the size of the engine. But it sounded like a thunderstorm. You know, when you'd hit the gas pedal, and it was just you know, that was the phase my dad had gone through. You know, that was like the consumption era, wasn't it? Well, no, I mean, the 90s might be a little early for you to really remember. Well, I mean, I was
okay.
Okay.
In the 90s.
Okay. All right.
I
Well,
graduated in 97.
Oh. Well, it was the big consumption era, wasn't it? We just loved them bigger and better back then.
Absolutely, yeah. Bigger,
I
better.
just liked reading in the 90s.
Was that?
Yeah.
I'm the baby of the group in this situation.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved to California in 98.
Oh, okay.
Oh, so you moved to California when I left California.
Yep.
I moved to Switzerland in 97.
Okay. Yeah, I was just graduating high school in 97. And I did a year of community college in New York. Got myself into a bunch of trouble. And it was determined that my aunt had to talk with my dad and was like, listen, if you don't want to be a grandfather anytime soon, you need to get your daughter out to California because she's making some really stupid decisions. And so in May, I started looking. She'd gotten me to look at colleges. Or actually, I'm sorry, in April, she got me to look at colleges. And by June, I was in California. My stepmother, I always call her a saint because she took in an 18-year-old who went from having this really, really strict, religious, structured upbringing to having a normal, standard upbringing. Was like total freedom, loss of control for me. Yeah. And she took me in, and she had toddlers. Her kids were Lily and Landon's age. My sister, my sister was 5, and my little brother was 3. At the time she took me in. And
did you help raise them? Did you help take care of the kids?
I helped the kids. Yeah, I was almost au pair. I want to say au pair, but yeah, I was kind of nanny with them. My little brother was the cutest thing when he was little. Then he got big, and yeah, I was there with them when they were really little, changing diapers, doing everything with them. I remember my sister turned 12. We took her, my friend and I took her on our first Disney day, her first girls' day, teenage girls' day, her first big adult day. And the whole time we kept, Van Wilder had just come out. And so everything was write that down. And then we got a kick out of it because she started writing everything down.
I knew you then, right? Did I know you then?
No? This is before Brandon and I got married.
Oh, okay. Then I remember.
Right around that time he and I got married. You met me after that, after I got back from Texas.
That's right.
I know, it's been so long. But yeah, I thought it was really funny until my friend goes, mind you, my sister's 12. She goes, okay, don't have sex until you're at least in college. And I'm driving, and we're on our way to Disneyland, and my sister's writing it down, and I'm thinking, oh my God, my parents are going to discover this. And so my immediate thought was, oh, until you're married. And I'm hitting her going, until you're married.
That's too funny. Oh,
I mean,
God.
college is like solid advice. At least you're not saying high school.
Yeah, because I mean, really, in high school, does anybody know what they're doing?
No.
Well, I can say, from personal experience that I hadn't a clue. But my experience was different because I was struggling with the very strange issue of my particular sexuality, and why I was attracted to all the wrong people, i.e. guys, and hating myself for it. But I'm actually going to draw a literary line here. Have you read the book Little Fires Everywhere?
We have that on our list.
I just got it. Okay, so funny story. We tried to get her on the show. We tried to get Celeste on the show, but she's not doing any interviews for 2018. But her publicist was like, but I can give you a book. Sorry, she can come on the show. Would you like a book instead? And I'm like, sure. So I get a book, and I'm like, okay, Michelle.
I'm asking that is because these issues that you're discussing are right, at the core of the of this book. It's actually, the book actually, the entire plot line, is wrapped around these 2 high school well, actually, two families, but in particular, these two high school girls who are both, discovering their sexuality at the same time, and it's really, really fascinating. And yeah, it was kind of eye-opening for me. What did you read her first one then?
No, I have not read any of her books yet.
Okay. Her first one, well, excuse me, the one before this, prior to this, is called Everything I Never Told You.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And it's one of the most masterful pieces of writing I've ever read. When I read a book, I put them in one of three categories. One, I can't finish this. Two, this is really, really good. I love this. And three, this is so good, I hate the author. And Everything I Never Told You, I was so upset by the time I was 2/3 of the way through this book, because it is so masterfully written that I just wanted to throw the book out the window because it was so good and so compelling. And this book is just as good. It's a different kind of book. Little Flowers Everywhere is, it's a different kind of book. But the saving grace with Everything I Never Told You was, after I had finished that book and caught my breath, I read the acknowledgments, and she starts off the acknowledgments by thanking her agent, I think it was Judy Bearer, for being so patient, because it took her 6 years to write it. And I was like, thank you, Jesus. Because it's one of those books that is written so masterfully, it feels like it all came out as a draft. It's like, you just get the impression that this piece of brilliance was written in 3 months. And when she said, okay, this took me 6 years, I actually felt like I was back in the game a little bit.
Yeah, my book is going on 4 years now.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we talked about it last time we were here. Lemon Collie. What's that?
I said hopefully future books won't take as long.
Well, okay. Lemon Collie took me 9 years. But that's 9 years of stopping and starting. 9 years from when I wrote the first word to the date of publication, and it was an evolution, and it was. I used that first book to really teach myself the craft of writing. It doesn't get any easier. It doesn't get any easier.
Don't tell me that.
When I first started this next book, my sophomore effort, it was all very free form, and I was all very excited, and I put together a draft. My agent had wanted 3 chapters and a synopsis because she was going to sell the book. I was just kind of shocked by the idea that you could actually sell a book before it was actually written. I mean, I was that naive. And I won't go through the entire, through the entire iteration, but I threw out 4 entire plot lines and probably 400 pages of writing. I threw it away, threw it all away. Until I finally came out, with this particular storyline that I'm absolutely infatuated with. And
I'm infatuated with it too. It's going to be a great storyline, and we're going to read it here, and I can't wait to read it.
Well, be patient, because I'm being obsessive. I'm really being obsessive. I'm not drafting the way people typically draft. I'm actually going scene by scene and perfecting the scene before I move to the next one, because I want that scene that's being informed by the prior scene to be informed by a perfected scene. Otherwise, I'm going to have to write it all over again. So I'm actually writing the book as, each chapter is basically a separate book for me. And so I'm building, basically, it's like walking up a set of stairs, and I don't want to skip a step. And but I'm finally on a roll, and I have maybe 250 really, really good pages. Whereas when I wrote Lemon Collie, I wrote the first draft, 500 pages in 3 months. Yeah,
my first draft was 8 months that I wrote that one.
It's when you look back at it.
Working on it.
Well, and the thing is, when you look back on it, you go, "That's kind of cute, isn't it? How naive you were." You wrapping it out, and you go, "I'm just going at it. This is going to be great." And I'm, and I'm getting an agent, and I'm moving on. And then you realize
finished in the second draft. It's all good. Second draft like an agent. I actually queried a couple times because I'm just that cocky. And yeah. Fifth draft, I've got an editor. I'm close. I'm really close. I can see a light at the end of the tunnel that I can actually get this published before I'm 40. And
fantastic.
Yeah, I got 3 years. I got 3 years before I'm 40 to get this damn thing published. And I feel confident enough that I can work on something else.
So is it with an editor right now, or?
Yeah, it's with an editor. I'm working with a professional editor. Actually, she's actually going to be on the show next month. Her name's Holly. She's actually written. Her name's Holly Kramer. She runs Acorn Publishing, and she does. She writes her own novels. And in fact, one of the books that she's actually edited just recently made it to the USA Today bestsellers list.
Wow, fantastic.
Yeah, I'm like, yay, I've got this really great editor. I'm going to make it to the USA Today's bestseller list too. Because, you know, like I said, I'm cocky.
No, you have to think that way.
Yeah.
You simply have to think that way. And there's nothing wrong with thinking that way.
Yeah, you know, everybody else has said that because when you're an author, you've got to fool yourself into thinking you're writing the best thing ever. Yep. That you can't let yourself think, okay, what I've got coming out is just complete and total crap. You've got to think it's the best thing ever. It's going to be Pulitzer Prize worthy. This is going to be everything. You have to fool yourself into doing it because otherwise you're not going to sit down and do it. I
can't tell you how many acceptance speeches I've made while taking a shower.
Probably as many as I've made on my drive home from work.
Really? Yeah. And the funny thing is, okay, are you like me where you all of a sudden you almost slip out of the stream of time and into your little fantasy, and you're working it and you're enjoying it and you're filling it out, and the fantasy is becoming embellished, it's becoming larger, and all of a sudden you're there before the Nobel Prize committee and you're making your acceptance speech, and then all of a sudden your fantasy has nowhere else to go, and so you get sucked back out of that pinhole and you're in the real world, and you feel like an idiot.
Yep.
For what you've just done. You're like,
absolutely. You are my brother from another mother, because seriously, that has totally happened with me. That is, I have done that multiple times. I have won multiple Pulitzers. I have won an Oscar. And I'm thinking non-Oscar for this one because, I mean, I've got the idea from, like, because there's been talk about, you know, yeah, this could make a really great miniseries or a television show or movie. And I've got a friend who is very much within the Hollywood scene, and she and I were talking about it, and she's like, if you want to do pilot, because this would make a good pilot for, like, a television show, you need to write the pilot. You need to do a draft of the pilot. And I'm like, I don't know how to write a script. I don't know how to do this. It doesn't matter. Learn. You've got time between your edits. Learn how to write a script. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn how to write a script. And I'm going to do this. And I'm thinking, you know, in my head, while I'm driving home in this imaginary world, okay, so I don't win the Oscar for Anita because, you know, this is just training. But I won the Oscar for a future one. And the future one, I'm going to win the Oscar for that. And I'm going to have this lovely acceptance speech. And I'm just going to be the charm of...
that's well, I'm glad to know that I'm not alone. It's funny because I do go through that whole curve where I'm building on the crest of that fantasy, and all of a sudden I crash at the end of it because I get so embarrassed that I've allowed myself to go that far with it, and then I kind of beat myself up, and I give myself a talking to, for actually having enjoyed that time that I was immersed, in this make-believe world that I created. And I was talking to another writer today about an iteration of that, because she was, and I don't want to get political, but she was a victim of abuse, and I mean broken arm victim of abuse, bruises on the side of your face, and she's been quite traumatized by what's happening in the media. And she, for the very first time in her life, she's a very self-contained individual and a lovely, lovely lady. For the very first time I've ever seen, she actually went on a Facebook rant, and
Oh, wow.
she said, you know, this is not okay. You know, you don't victim shame. And basically she said with her particular situation, she actually had to go to court to get a restraining order, and she is in court with a broken arm and with bruises on the side of her face, and the person who had perpetrated this abuse upon her had hired a $500 an hour attorney to say she was it was actually makeup and she'd faked the accident to, you know, for sympathy. And she basically said, you know, it doesn't work that way. And she said, you know, if you're offended by this rant, you know, fine, unfriend me. I mean, I feel that strongly. And I sent her a message on her Facebook feed, and I said, look, I'm feeling all the emoticons for you, because, you know, I have been in situations too where I'm watching on the political spectrum, something happening where the harm affects me directly, and I have these really dark fantasies that I perpetrate on you know, on the individual who's basically trying to create a direct harm against me. And and then when I come out of those fantasies, I get really embarrassed and I feel very bad about myself. And I'm finding out that everybody does it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I don't beat up myself too much about it, because part of it's my own internal narcissism. I have no shame. I will admit it. I am a bit narcissistic. But part of it's like, okay, these are going to be my goals now. I'm going to make this happen. I am going to have the really nice house in Palm Springs and the condo in LA, you know, for when I have to do the Hollywood stuff. The house in Palm Springs is going to be the living house, where I also have my bookstore and speakeasy, because, you know, gotta have a speakeasy.
You have it all planned out. You do.
Yeah, I gotta, and especially in Palm Springs, because, you know, Palm Springs, you gotta keep it weird. And
Mike just got back from Palm Springs, so keep going.
Oh, I love Palm Springs. Absolutely love it. And I want to open up a bookstore there and have like theme nights and everything. Make it like a really community, like almost like a community center for writers and artists.
Very cool. That's very cool.
So, yeah, so I'm like, okay, these are going to be my goals now. These are the things that are going to happen, so I don't beat myself up too much about it.
Michelle?
Yes.
What about you?
Tonight.
I know. I'm just enjoying the conversation tonight.
Do you do that? Do you are you a person that fantasizes and then you kind of catch yourself out on your own fantasies and go, oh my God, what have I just done?
I do. I've started to now. I just want not the Pulitzer yet, but I won 2.
No Pulitzers, no second home.
You won
2 small journalism awards for some writing that I did for a newspaper in San Diego. So now it's like, oh, okay, so people are actually like recognizing, and it's not just my mom telling me like, oh, you're good. It's like professionals. So now I've had this one idea for a story. I've had it for, I don't even know how long, 7 years. And I've started a draft and I tossed it because I wrote myself into a corner. And now it's starting to pick up steam again. So my fantasy right now is to finish the damn thing.
Okay.
And I'm going to push to actually finish the book.
That's a fair one.
You see, I don't know if we ever told you, because I actually gave up writing for a number of years. I stopped. Yeah. When we lived in Texas, I actually gave it a full, honest to God go. Good old college try to do it, and I kept spinning my wheels, and nothing was coming of it. Nothing was happening. I was miserable there, because I'm a California girl. I'm not a Texas girl. And, and it just wasn't happening. And so when we got back to California, my husband was struggling to find a job. I needed a job, and I ended up working in the travel agency with Michelle in that wonderful call center where we lost our souls. And then, Yeah, and in that time, I stopped writing. I was just like, this isn't for me. It's not going to happen for me. And so I just focused on. I still love to read, and I just kept reading. And that's how she and I bonded, was over books, because we wouldn't work and would just actually read instead of actually work. And so she actually read a little bit of a short story, a little bit of something that I had started at one point. And she was like, why aren't you writing? You need to be writing. To the point where she would actually tag other authors and articles about writing when she would send them, so that they would nag me too, so that I would then start writing. And so finally I started writing again, and it was because of her. So now it's my turn.
Michelle, where were you when I needed you?
I can be very annoying when I need to be.
If you need her to nag you about writing and be your nagging person, she can totally do it. She's really great at it. I feel sorry for her husband.
Listen, my problem now is not writing. My problem is actually getting away from it.
I wish I had that problem.
I'm now, well, listen, I'm turning into the cliche. I'm turning into the little old guy who pounds at his computer and screams at the dog, across the street because it's too loud, or something. I mean, I'm becoming so intense right now that I'm actually scaring myself.
Once you start writing like that, like once you get in your blood where you actually start to do it and you really start focusing on it, that happens. It happens with me, and Ryan every now and then is like, all right, he'll make a point of being, okay, you cannot be a hermit. I am taking you out. We are going out. We are going to a party. We are going to socialize. We are going to do stuff. And he will drag me kicking and screaming to events and things. Because no, I need to write.
Well, listen, my day, I mean, I'm now in a position where I can be a full-time writer, which, is a blessing and a curse. And it's more blessing than curse. But now that I'm so dialed in with my manuscript and getting so, excited about it, I wake up and I set my alarm for 7. I usually get up, I'm almost always up before my alarm goes off. And I go into the kitchen, I drink a glass of water, and I come and sit in front of the computer before I even eat breakfast. Normally what I'll do is I will actually read through what I've written the prior day and clean it up. And then I'll start working on, where I want to move it to, over the course of the day. And once I get that set in my head and get all that writing done, then I go and make breakfast. Sometimes I don't get to breakfast till like 9:30 or something, and that can be really, really weird. And I just lose track of time. I lose track of time, and I lose track of myself. And I have a standing lunch date with my best friend Ian every Thursday, and I will go to lunch with him. And I'm still, when you write and you're concentrating that hard over such a long period of time, it wires itself. And I will go to lunch and I will be so intense that even I'm frightening myself, and I can't unwind myself while I'm talking to him. And I've even asked him, I said, how do you bear it? He goes, I'm just used to it. And, the same thing, and I feel so bad for Mike sometimes, because I will get, I can't stop my brain from firing. It's just firing on all cylinders. And, everything is so intense. And, but we
think everything else. When I'm in writing mode, like pure writing mode, dishes don't get done, laundry doesn't get done. Husband had to learn how to do his own laundry because I stopped doing laundry.
The only saving grace I could say is that I don't have a lot of mental stamina. And my brain will get to the point where it's just, all of a sudden, it's bogged down. And I can tell the cylinders are just moving sluggishly. And that's when I go, okay. And I force myself to walk away from the computer, and I spend time with my husband. We go take a walk, or we go in the backyard, and just kind of hang out and look at the sky. And then I recharge and I come back and do it. But I don't have weekends and weekdays right now.
I go through a period where I'll have like an evening where I just can't work. Like I'll go straight on, because I'll go from the job, and at the job I'll have my little lectern notebook that I use for when it's slow. I'll write down notes and write down, sketch out little scenes. During my lunch breaks, I'll either read or I will write out scenes for like, I'll spend the whole hour just sitting and eating my lunch and working and writing. And then I'll come home and I'll type it up and I'll work until about midnight just typing up the scene and working and writing.
Yeah,
and
your poor husband.
and he works at night, so this doesn't bother him.
Yeah, okay.
So, and I'll get up at 6:30 in the morning and do it all over again. And on the weekends, I get up, I write, I'll sit with him on the couch while he's watching TV and stuff, but I am writing. There's either a laptop or a book in my lap.
Now, to be fair, I do the same thing too, and I don't feel that bad about it because Mike also has his laptop and he's on eBay. He lives on eBay because he has this. He's a Eurythmics memorabilia collector. The musical group Eurythmics and Annie Lennox. I think I've mentioned it before. He collects their memorabilia, and he is always on eBay looking for the next Holy Grail.
Right, he's a Star Wars guy, so he's got his Star Wars stuff. Or for a while it was Pokemon, so he'll be playing Pokemon. While I'm writing, so yeah.
But I'm guessing Mike has a couple thousand pieces of Eurythmics memorabilia. I mean, he has that much.
Ryan's an autograph collector. We have,
oh, really?
Yeah, we've got thousands of autographs. And this is including hockey. He's got hockey autographs, actual celebrity autographs. For Christmas, he's getting from Star Wars. The new Star Wars, Daisy. I don't see Ridley, but I don't think that's right.
Daisy
Ray.
What is it?
Ray in the last Star Wars, episode 7.
What's her name? Daisy. She's so cute.
I like her. I went on Ridley. It is Daisy Ridley. Okay. I went on an epic nerd rage rant because I am an Oscar Isaacs fangirl. And I was like, she's not as good as Isaac, or as Isaac. She really isn't. And I was just like going off on it. And partially it was because I'm bitter because this is his Christmas present, and it's an expensive Christmas present for an autograph. It's $350 for an 10.
Oh wow!
Originally, he wanted the big one, which was $450.
Oh,
and he's dropped down to $350. And it was. I went on epic nerd rage rant. I'm like, she's not legendary like Carrie Fisher, and we paid about as much as for Carrie Fisher.
Mike does the same thing. He will drop a couple $100 on one of those little 7-inch singles, or something. But he loves it, so I just let him do it.
It's their hobbies, As long as it doesn't break the bank, as long as we can still pay rent and put food on the table.
I agree. Yeah, there's a little bit of a balance there, but I don't have any room to talk because I have this. But you can't see, but I'm surrounded by my little whimsy art collection.
We have seen some of the art. You're so quiet tonight, Michelle.
I know. I don't know why. I think I'm.
Oh my gosh, that's so cute. For those of you who are listening, that is a green and white polka dot chicken.
Ceramic chicken, and his name is.
It looks cloth.
Yeah, and his name is Broken Egbert.
Broken Egbert looks very special, guys.
And then I've got, I have this entire collection of two-dimensional vases from this artist by the name of Alice Rose.
Yeah, I remember you.
Crazy stuff.
Cool.
And I probably have, I have an entire room full of this stuff. I don't even know. Okay, this is Sprague Robin. So, I can't say anything because I spend money on this stuff. So he buys Eurythmics memorabilia and I buy that.
Ryan has been very relieved because I get so many advanced readers copies of books that I don't really buy books anymore. There's only like the research books I buy. That's what I end up buying at this. And he's so relieved over that because I used to spend a lot of money on books.
Did either of you follow that controversy on Twitter about that woman who was selling her ARCs?
Yes, on Facebook I saw that.
Yeah, that was wild. She got a lot of hate.
Yeah, I remember you actually stepped in there with that. But yeah, for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, you know, for those of us who do book blogging, and even here on Wine Women Words, we'll get books for free. That's just something that authors do. They get a write-off for it, and they will give the book to people like us to promote, read, and talk about. And so oftentimes we'll ask for the book. Sometimes they'll solicit to us, and it's seen as it's not cool to go ahead and sell those books. That's like a book reviewer's no.
Well, it gets more complicated. Do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead. Because you get the author's perspective, you have the book reviewer's perspective.
Yeah, it's actually more complicated than that, and because
I was doing the basic groundwork of it.
Yeah, what we provide is this thing called an advanced reader copy that you mentioned, and it's actually not the completed book. It's actually a pre-bound copy of the book.
Well, sometimes, like for example, with Little Fires Everywhere, that's the full.
Oh, you got the actual book. Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Well,
I have some. In fact, I can actually show some so that for those of you who are watching, you can see. Here's one I just got. Jennifer Lamb will be on in March. Lost Season of Love and Snow. This is one of those cases where it's an uncorrected proof.
Yep.
So as you can see here, it says uncorrected proof. It's got the white border around it, so it's not the full cover. And there will be typos in the book.
Yes. Yes. But it also, let me show you. But it will also say.
Some will say not for resale. Some will. This one doesn't.
Oh, they don't all say that? I thought they all did.
Not all of them. Okay, yeah.
On ARCs, I thought ARCs would say marketing publicity campaign, uncorrected advanced copy, not for sale. But here's the story, as I say, because I actually spoke to that lady. Mm-hmm. I actually had a conversation with her because I felt bad for her.
Yeah, you're so wonderful because, so many of us, it's so easy to, and I'm trying not to be this person anymore, but it's so easy to grab your pitchfork and be like, oh, hell no. Because I saw it secondhand. I saw it from Amy Tamblyn, I think is the last name.
Yeah, Amy Tamblyn. Amy. See, this is what happens when you have a glass and a half of wine. I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, she's actually going to be on the show in June.
This is embarrassing. Amy's a friend of mine. All right, I'll think of it in a second. I'm going to tell the story as I see it, and you help me fill it in. Okay, so this woman facilitates.
Trumbly, Amy.
Yes,
Trumbly.
there we go. Thank you. This woman that we're talking about facilitates several Facebook groups that are groups that are for people who are bibliophiles, people who love books. And this one particular book is a site where people go on it and they post ARCs, advanced reader copies that they've received for sale. And there, and all these authors got up in arms over this site because for a couple of reasons. One, it says on the advanced reader copy, not for sale. Mm-hmm. Secondly, as an advanced reader copy, it is uncorrected and there are mistakes, and that's horrifying to an author that the world at large sees.
Hasn't gone through. Yeah, there's going to be typos. You've got a copy who will go through and make sure that this looks pretty enough for sale.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason we give out the ARC is so this captive audience will help us find those errors and we'll correct it before the final proof. But this is what most people don't know, and that is that 97% of authors live below the poverty line, and even the sale of one book is significant to them because those numbers add up very, very quickly. And if somebody's getting a book for free and then they're turning around and they're making the profit that you never made in the first place.
Yeah, that's wrong because you consider the fact that when you sell a book, typically royalties are like what, no more than 10% of the sale of a book. So you figure. Like your book, Melancholy Life of Annie Astor, is on sale right now for $2 on Kindle if you want to buy it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. you're going to get maybe 10% of that. So that's
Right.
even a full dollar for one sale of that book, because so much goes to other things. And so by getting this book from somebody, from an author, you're getting money out of their pocket. Yes, they can write it off as a promotion for taxes, theoretically. But it's still money out of their pocket. It's like you're taking a piece of art from an artist,
yes,
and without paying for it, and then turning around and reselling that art. And that's really rude, and it's really ungrateful. When I get a book from an author, I feel so grateful for getting the book, and I love the books, and I try to read every single one of them. I actually managed somehow to get on HarperCollins book review list.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm getting a lot of books from them. So it's going to take me a very long time to read them all, but it's something nice that people do, and you don't want to turn around and resell a gift. Regifting a gift is seen as being a not really a good thing. Reselling a gift is even worse.
Well, and so if you look at the math, if a person resells an ARC,
mm-hmm.
the author basically just lost 2 sales,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and somebody else has made money off of their work.
Absolutely.
So it gets very complicated very quickly. But what had happened was, this had just gone viral on Twitter and on Facebook, and people were just ragging on this poor lady. And she had made the mistake of getting defensive.
Mm-hmm.
And she had said, my book, my Facebook group, my rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then all hell rained down on her from the authorship quarter. And one of my author friends had posted, what did a screen capture of her post and put it on her own wall, and people were commenting and were just laying into this. Yeah.
Oh, and I was trying not to be too mean, because I don't want to. You see it so much now that it's so easy for the people with the pitchforks to come running after you for making one bad tweet. I mean, I watched the last few Family Guys. I've seen what's happened to poor Brian the dog for making one poorly made somewhat racist tweet. I see how that can happen, and I've been making conscientious effort for a while now not to be one of those people, because there's enough crap going on in the world to get up in arms.
Yeah, I mean, no kidding. Well, what had happened was, with me, I had seen her in this. She was actually responding to 4 or 5 different people right in real time.
Uh-huh.
So people were saying but, and at one point in the early, an early point within this comment thread, she had said it wasn't me, it was another woman, and I have actually stopped the practice on my wall, mm-hmm. and within my group, and but people weren't really hearing it, and mm-hmm. Then she made the mistake of kind of throwing somebody else under the bus, because I think she was simply afraid, and she, and then people were getting on her case for that. So what I did was I simply went behind the scenes and I sent her a private message saying, listen, I'm following this comment thread, and I just want to let you know that I heard what you wrote, or that I heard what you said, and I want to thank you for having stopped the practice, because what I don't think you understand is I explained to her about how most authors live under the poverty line, and I explained to her the consequences of selling an ARC, and how that means an author loses 2 sales and somebody else makes a profit. And we're talking about a person who maybe, is struggling to pay their rent. And she came back to me, she said, thank you for speaking to me. And she goes, and I understand, and I'm trying to make amends. And she said, can you please stand up for me? And I was like, and bless her heart. Bless her heart. She was a complete stranger to me, but she was being eviscerated. So I remember
on social media, because you're like the social media warrior.
Me?
I love how you well, you stand up for gay rights, and you get right on in there, and I will cheer you on as much as I can, because there are some people who are real assholes out there.
Have you read some of the stuff that people have said to me on Facebook?
Yes. I mean, Michelle and I mean, we learned firsthand, working in a call center, what it's like. dealing with people over the phone who, because they cannot see you, because they are not face to face with you, they think they can say or do whatever they want. I think she and I both at different times have been brought to tears by people being so mean to us over the phone. And yeah, people are just on the internet. It's the same way. And so, yeah, I'll cheer you on when I can. And I'm a little bummed that we didn't have that social media campaign, because I was like, we're going to have you on for it. I'm going to be all behind.
Well, all I can tell you is that I have, because I'm a gay man, and because I have been persecuted my entire life, I have a very acute sense of moral outrage. Mm-hmm. And when I can experience it even tangentially, and I have a lot of empathy for the underdog. And so when people were going after her and she was trying to correct her behavior and she wasn't being as articulate as she could be, and she was being a little more defensive than necessary, but that didn't matter. She was still trying to correct her behavior. And I saw this as a two-tiered issue. One, she needed to be acknowledged for trying to correct her behavior. So I went behind the scenes and did it so my own friends wouldn't eat me alive for doing it. And the second thing was, I figured, if we handle this properly, she could become the biggest advocate for author rights, out there once she understands how this really works. So I had a great conversation with her. And then, when I could, because when I'm writing and I get crazy, I take a break and I go on Facebook for 10 minutes and I just kind of scroll. And if I would see it, and it was being posted everywhere. Everybody was commenting. So I would just go in and say, hey, just to let you know, I had a private conversation with this lady, and this is what transpired. And I was just trying to, just cool off, give everybody, send everybody to the corner, so to speak, give them a moment to cool off. And, and I think it worked. But it is a tricky issue. People don't understand. I worked for 9 years. Let me call you Life of Annie Astley. Yeah. And that book sells for $10. So you get 9 years of my life for $10, of my blood, sweat, and tears. And today, my 10 years of effort is being sold for $1.99. And we can discuss, all the permutations around that. But people get offended, when they have to pay $10 for a novel. Yet they will walk down the street and spend $6 on a birthday card that took 2 or 3 minutes to make.
Or $6 on a cup of coffee.
On a cup of coffee. Yeah.
Go to Starbucks. It's like almost $6 for a cup of coffee.
Yeah. I mean, so we're talking about a very complex environment, and authors are like teachers. I think that there is a certain that we don't appreciate the full breadth of what happens within an author's life.
Yeah, because you see what happens. You just see the end result. You don't see the whole process of it. You don't see the research. You don't see everything else that goes into it. Yeah,
and then you're expected to be politically perfect. Your book is then handed out to the world. It's your child. It's then handed out to the world, and they get to examine it any way they want to, and they get to say whatever the hell they please. And then they get to go and plaster it all over Amazon or Goodreads, and they get to say, this person is an idiot. This person sucks. And
yeah, that's one of the things I've taken with my book reviews is that if I've taken the stance of there's very few books that I will actually tear apart. They have to really hit every single bad.
And there are books out there that will hit all the awful tick boxes, right?
Yeah, yes, and I will. If they hit all the awful tick boxes, then I will go after them. There's a few that come to mind, but I will not say them.
I know which ones you're thinking of too.
I know you do. But for my blog, I won't do a bad book review. My basic gauntlet is if you've made it far enough where I'm going to actually review the book, then it's a good book. Otherwise, I'm not going to review it. And here, we actually do a pre-screening of the books.
Yep.
Before they come on to see, okay, you know, how we're going to like them. And we'll read them in time for the month, you know, during the month when the author's on. Because, I mean, that also takes a lot of the, okay, hey, you're here face-to-face with me. I'm not going to tell you face-to-face, I hate your book. Because that's not, that's just not
like when I did my first interview with you, I was like, what's going to happen here?
Well, you already had my book review.
Yeah,
so,
I know, but I had forgotten. But you know, listen, one of the requirements of being an author also, and bless you, you're part of this too, is we're all dingy. We don't always connect all those dots.
Okay, and but also let's also take into consideration you found me.
That's true. That's true.
So
Okay.
I figured, okay, we already kind of knew what was going to happen because you found me.
Yeah, that's true.
Why I don't do bad book reviews is because of situations like that where you found me online and you're like, oh, hey, thank you for the book review. And other authors have done similar things. So I do that bad book review. I'm just waiting for that one author to be like, yeah, so.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's look at the
bad book review.
Let me play the devil's advocate.
Uh-huh.
Because I understand how troubling that can be as well.
Mm-hmm.
A person who is buying a product wants to know what they're getting into.
It's true.
And so if if everybody is of the mind, I'm not going to review a book if I can't, say something good about it. That is problematic because how many books are published a week? How many hundreds of thousands of books are published a week under self-publishing? I mean, there is a lot of white noise out there. So I appreciate, an honest review. Of course, I only want a 5-star review, and I'm going to be kind of like, if I didn't get a 5-star review, damn it, 9 years. But let me tell you something. The minute I go onto Amazon and I see a book and I look at its reviews and it has a rating of 4.9 out of 5, I hold the review suspect. Wouldn't you? Those are manufactured reviews. There
are some that are out there that are manufactured, that are pure manufactured reviews. There was the YA. You heard about the YA author recently, right?
Yes. What was the name of that book?
Oh gosh, I don't remember the name of the book. It was like some sort of roast thing. Did you hear about this controversy, Michelle?
Yeah, I did. So
yeah. Yeah, she bought her way.
We're trying to make you talk.
I know. I'm just completely.
Yeah, you've had a long day. You just had a long day. You just sit there and nod wisely. We'll just tell everybody she's nodding wisely.
They're looking pretty.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say that, but I wanted to say that. It's like, well, that will sound really misogynistic, so I'm not going to say that.
I can say it because I'm the BFF and I can get away with saying things like that.
Yeah.
I've said it before.
So get back to the controversy.
Okay, so this woman basically, there were, that's one of the other things with book reviews is that they generate the buzz for a book that's coming out, that's going to come out. You want that buzz to come out before your book comes out so that people want to buy it. And there was no buzz about this book. Nobody within the YA community had reviewed this book. And there are a ton of YA blogs out there. Everybody, they're constantly reviewing books. If they know a book that's going to come out 2 years from now,
thank you. Yeah.
They are so on top of it. And all of a sudden, this book was on the bestseller list, was #1 spot. Number one. Nobody had heard of it. No book reviews.
Went from 0, nobody hears of it, to #1, and it knocks the hate you give out of the #1 spot, which was sitting at #1 for like 15 weeks, right?
Yes, because that was a very well-deserved book, from what I understand.
Yes, absolutely.
I haven't read it yet, but I read the reviews. And then on top of it, the author and another person has an IMDb page for the movie version that's going to come out. I mean, talk about, we had this discussion about our fantasy ideas, our lives for our books and things.
Yeah.
So there was this major controversy about, can you buy your way onto the bestsellers list? Because what it turned out that they did was somebody, we don't know exactly who, called in to all the bookstores and said, I want to order these books. I want to order keys.
Oh, no, they were more diabolical than that. They found out, they would call into the bookstore and say, are you a reporting agency for the New York Times bestsellers list?
Mm-hmm.
And if they said yes, they would order a block of books from only that store. So now keep going.
Yeah, and then they got caught. Because I wasn't the author of The Hate That You Give the one who called him out on it? Or somebody called him out on it?
No, it was a blogger who was like, hey, wait a second. Does anybody see something weird with this? I don't even know what this book is.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a number one. It's, it's knocked The Hate You Give out of the top slot. That's like, being struck by lightning when the sky is clear.
Yeah.
It just can't happen. And did you go on Amazon and check its ratings? Because I didn't. I
have not. Goodreads. I don't even remember the name of the book. Because you go on there. It's just jacked up. Because I mean, there are people who will do it who are like, oh, I got this book review and this book and an advanced copy of this book, and it was so wonderful. I loved everything about it. And then I've seen it with other authors where the same exact review will be given by somebody else 5-star, and there was a few that I've seen that will give the book 5 stars before it even comes out. I'm so excited for this book. It's going to be so awesome. Oh my god, guys, I cannot wait. 5 stars.
Well, so in this particular case, it blew up in this person's face.
Yeah.
And the book disappeared. It just completely disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
And and I guess bully to them for trying, for giving it a college try. That's the whole.
So nice.
Yeah. Well, that's capitalism at work in some ways. I mean, it wasn't illegal. It was just diabolical and manipulative, and apparently the people who did get a hold of the book said it reads like a draft. But let's go even further. And audience, I'm not getting political. I'm just using this as a an authorship example. What about Hillary Clinton's book when it released? Did you see what happened?
Yeah.
Did you see
or it was like all these negative reviews all of a sudden.
Well, the first day it was released, it had on a 5.0 scale, it had gotten 1,500 reviews in one day, and it had a review rating of 2.7, which is pretty much horrid, right? But if you switch the algorithm within Amazon to go from all reviewers to only verified purchases, review rating went from 2.7 to 4.8.
Yeah, it's some bullshit where this happened. There's another author where that happened to. She happened to actually stand up to some KKK members. She was a Jewish author. She stood up to some KKK members, and the KKK launched this they launched a social media attack against her, and went for the jugular and just gave her all bad reviews on Goodreads.
That's just horrendous. And the thing is, if you understand how Amazon works, you can go and switch the algorithm and see who actually purchased the book, and you can actually figure out, I mean, my guess is if somebody checked that book out and they switched from all reviewers to verified purchases only, the review rating would have gone through the roof.
Which I think Amazon needs to start doing that for books. They do that for when you purchase products, that it's a verified purchase, and they need to start doing that for books too. And since they own Goodreads, I think they need to do that too, which kind of make it hard for those of us who do blogging, because we get the advanced reader's copy, so we're not a verified purchase. But then again, we also have our blogs, which we go into.
But you also can post a review and it'll show up under all reviews, and you can say, I received a copy for in return for an honest review, correct?
I'm bad about that. I'm bad about posting I'm bad about posting the fact that I've got an arc, because I just assume, you know what? I'm a blog. just assume it's an arc.
Yeah.
Because I equate myself along with the newspapers, not that necessarily as good as the newspapers, but I equate myself with the newspapers because I say, okay, just assume I've got an arc because I'm a book reviewer. Just automatically assume it, and we'll go from there.
But I guess the whole point of this conversation is, since your audience can't see us, I'm basically just trying to illustrate the terrain that we have to navigate on a daily basis.
Well, they see now with the audience, they can see us and they can't, because this also goes, it's live on YouTube, so we'll be on our YouTube.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we're going to be live. We're live on YouTube. So it'll be posted on YouTube. So we have two sets of audience. We've got the YouTube, and then we also have, we're on iTunes, and also on Google Play and podcasts.com and all over the place, but primarily iTunes for podcasts and stuff, because everybody uses iTunes. I'm one of the few people who don't use an Apple. You too? Wow. Hey!
I'm horrible. Listen, I'm horrible. I have never purchased a song in my life.
Never purchased
on iTunes. I've never downloaded one. I apologize. I just drove down to St. Luke's shopping center 3 days ago and bought 2 CDs. Who buys CDs?
I don't buy CDs anymore.
That's all I buy.
Smith CD on your car in your car.
And listen. I don't have Spotify. I have an iTunes account. I've never used it. Except when I don't know how they connect, but when I buy a movie on Apple TV,
when I come out, because I'm saying next year because it's already almost 2018. But when I come out there, am I going to need to teach you how to do that?
Yes. Normal. but regardless, the terrain we navigate is unbelievably bumpy.
Mm-hmm.
And
I started watching the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and there's a point. It's a new show on Amazon. Oh my God, you've got to watch it. It's fantastic. I love every minute of it. It's from the same people who did the Gilmore Girls. Amy.
Oh, you're kidding me! All right, all right. I'll check it out.
And she goes and she does the comedy, and she asks the comedian, do you love it? And he's like, if I could be anything else in the world, I would be that. And she's like, but do you love it? And the guy's like, and shrugs. I feel that way with writing. If I could just be a paralegal and just do my own thing, come home, have a glass of wine, and do nothing else, maybe read a book, I would do that. But writing is in the blood. I can't not write to the point where I don't understand people who don't write, who don't try to write or do stuff. What do you do?
I'm the same way. My every day is an adventure, and I spend a lot of time. I spend so much time being twisted in knots throughout the course of a day when I can't construct the exact perfect sentence that I know what I'm trying to convey requires. And I will tie myself in the knots over it, and I will yell at myself, and I will yell at my laptop. And yet I would not, and you would think that I absolutely loathed my occupation, my vocation, but I absolutely adore it. It's incredibly intense, and it makes me intense, and it makes me a weird person as a result. And I have
stories that I feel I have to tell. I have a list of stories that need to be told that I have to tell. If I don't get these stories out, it's not right. It's not okay.
I did something today. I wrote a scene. In that scene was a metaphor. Nobody laugh.
Okay.
But this was the most exquisite and perfect metaphor in the history of metaphors. And my day was made. Just by having written these 2 paragraphs. And this metaphor involved a puddle that had collected at a curb, and a street lamp, and the reflection of the street lamp in the puddle, and a June bug.
The slow writing book that I'm working on is just going to be all metaphors because it deals with a vineyard, and it deals with a man who lost everything. This is slowly writing in between other projects because I'm really wanting to focus on it like you're doing with your current book. or just one scene at a time. And it's about a man who shows up in America who lost everything on his way to California, and all he has left is a wine plant, a great plant, and nothing else is everything else that he's ever loved and ever known is gone, and he's there starting over in California on his own, and it's just going to be Metaphor City.
Yeah. Well, all I can tell you, and that sounds beautiful, but all I can tell you is that, can I say this? When you write something, even if it's only a couple paragraphs, and it hits that, writing can hit your G-spot.
Yeah.
It can just, I mean, it's you know,
face.
What?
I mean, that was another metaphor. There you go. That was another metaphor.
It was a great metaphor because it was a perfect metaphor because it sums up everything beautifully. Michelle, no, the face that you had on your face, Michelle, was just this look of, I want to get there one day. You look like a poor girl.
No. Just because I haven't talked about fantasizing about winning Emmys or Pulitzers, and I have Pulitzers, doesn't mean that I don't love writing just as much. Or
I don't doubt it. I do not doubt it for a minute. Because I mean, you've got the journalism thing, and you, with 2 kids, you're actually still trying to write a book. That is something to be commended. So I'm not doubting that. You just, the look on your face was just classic there.
I was like, oh no, did I cross the line by saying?
No, please. If I'm friends with Diana, there is no line that anyone can ever cross.
Maybe it's really squiggly. It's just really squiggly line.
I'm the kind of person who sees the line and I'm like, ooh, something to step over.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I do. That's my superpower.
No, I'm jealous of you guys because I don't have that kind of time that I can dedicate to writing. Like, I wrote 1,000 words this morning at 5 o'clock after I woke up at 4:30 to take a shower before my kids woke up. And as soon as
what kind of writing was it?
It's the book that I'm writing on, which is kind of like it's a kind of a twisted sequel to The Wizard of Oz, but nowhere near like anything like Wicked or anything related to it. But it's just that world taken in a different direction.
I can tell you that if by the end of the day there is a sum total of 1,000 words more than there was the prior day, I count it to be a very good day for me because I delete more words than I write.
You know, I did an NaNoWriMo prep talk, and Ernest Hemingway only wrote 500 words a day.
Yeah.
And Eliot, I think, was right around the same amount. And T.S. Eliot, he had a day job before he actually like stopped to do his writing full time.
Let's go back to Hemingway. This is the fascinating thing. Hemingway, only wrote 500 words a day. Yet Hemingway was known for the simplicity, the exquisite simplicity of his writing. That shows you how much work it is to make writing clear and concise. He had to agonize, every day to whittle it down to those 500 words that, that 501 words would have been too much, 499 words would not have been enough. And, that's extraordinary to think about it. And I'm just saying, when I get through with the end of my writing day or I get close to it, I go and I highlight the scene that I've written and I do a word count just kind of see where I am. And, like right now I'm writing about 1,000 words a day, and that's, with a good 4 solid hours at the computer. Now, I spend more time in writing because I will walk out in the yard and yell at a butterfly because the writing isn't going where I want it to, or I will, I trick myself into clearing my brain in the weirdest ways. I'll go and wash dishes that don't even need to be washed. I do really, really weird things.
Yeah, seriously, if you need to clear your mind.
What's that?
We've already established I'm not washing my dishes, so can you come wash my dishes? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, but that makes it. I gotta go eat my dinner.
Yeah, it's midnight for Michelle, so she's.
Oh, Michelle, bless your heart.
No, it's sometimes I'm the talker and Diana's the listener, and some days Diana's the talker and I'm the listener, and I was the listener tonight. As long as no one's doing any slow breathing while listening, it's okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, or snoring, please.
Yeah, no snoring. No snoring, as long as they're not snoring. I don't know. When Scott's on, I don't think we put anybody to sleep. It's always fun and entertaining.
I'm going to have to go listen to the interview. Because I don't listen to my interviews because I don't like the sound of my own voice.
Oh, me neither. I never listen to us. No more than I do.
Transcribing interviews in journalism is one of the most painful parts of my job because I have to listen to myself on tape.
Yeah, do you remember what it was like the first time you heard your recorded voice?
Yeah.
And do you remember? I mean, I don't know if it was like me where I was just completely flabbergasted about how Mickey Mouse-ish and nasally I sounded.
Not you, me. I'm like, yeah, I'm like, no, not you, me. I feel that. It sounded really bad. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, I totally hear that. No, it's not you. I swear, I don't.
But the first time I heard it, your voice is so much richer between your ears. You know, when it's coming up and and vibrating up your throat, than when you hear it out in the world coming back at your ears. It's very, very strange.
I wish I had the voice that I hear inside my head. It's crazy.
Me too.
Yeah, the voice that I hear isn't that great, but then when I hear it on tape, it's like, "Hi, my name is Michelle, and I'd like to ask you some questions, if that's okay."
Yeah. So there you have it.
I don't have the New York accent anymore.
No.
Yeah. Well, what do we say to that, Michelle?
Well,
you got a little bit going on.
My Jersey accent only comes out like after multiple bottles of wine.
Yeah. Well, okay.
My New York accent comes out when I drink beer, and I don't drink beer.
Well, that begs a question. What does my accent sound like?
You sound like you have you sound like you have a California accent to me, which is the non-accent accent.
Occasionally a little bit of a touch of the Louisiana, especially when you say bless your heart. Bless her heart.
When I say what? When I say
bless
what?
her heart. When you say bless her heart, that's when Louisiana comes out, because that's such a very Southern thing. And I think I hear that because of this. That's such a Southern phrase. And for those of you who are not familiar with bless her heart, you need to go look it up.
Do you hear Louisiana, though, in my accent at all?
Very, very faintly. Only really
certain words, but you have to know.
No one has yet guessed where I'm from when I'm introduced to them and we have a conversation. Ever. No one ever guesses the South. No one ever guesses the South. They're always putting me in California or in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. I guess some of the Southern from some of the words, because I lived in the South, but it's mostly Californian. I get a lot of times I'll get Canadian. People ask me if I'm Canadian.
Okay.
If they're really sensitive with accents, because to get rid of that East Coast accent, I've elongated some of my vowels. So things like pocket sounds different with me. Car, that I made this point of changing it so it's elongated, so it sounds more. Sometimes it sounds more Canadian than it does New York.
Well, and the funny thing is, I'm surrounded with siblings. So I have a younger sister and I have an older brother. And my parents, and if you heard any of them, you would know exactly where they're from immediately, because you can hear the Southern drawl in them, and the thing it's just so strange. We went to the same schools, and I just don't have it. I can't even fake a Southern accent well.
Because you've been hanging out with Kiwis too long, Scott.
No, I came out of the womb sounding like this. I'm telling you, I have never had a Southern accent. It's
funny
weird.
story before we wrap up. Okay, so last year we went to Fiji, and so we're watching this little fish demonstration, and this Australian woman turns to Ryan and I, and she's like, "So, are you Canadian or American?" And we're like, "American." She's like, "Okay, I can never tell the two apart. I always get you guys mixed up." And Ryan turns to her and goes, "That's okay. We always get Australians and New Zealanders mixed up, so don't worry about it." Her face went 3 shades of red, and she's like, "No, no." And she's like, and this is how I can now tell them apart. And it's a really good thing. She's like, the difference between an Australian and a New Zealander is that an Australian or a Kiwi sounds like they're doing a really bad Australian accent.
You're kidding me. You know how I can tell the difference?
How?
Australians sound like they're playing the kazoo. There is a Southern nasally twang to the way Australians speak, and it's when I hear that, when it sounds like they're playing a kazoo, I'm like, oh, Australian. And you hear Mike, who was born and raised in New Zealand, and there are variations of the Kiwi accent, of course, just like there are variations of an American accent. But New Zealand is a much smaller country. Mike sounds British. He sounds almost British, because it's all part of that Commonwealth thing. But he has the most un-Kiwi accent I've ever heard. So, for what it's worth. Well, anyway, and speaking of that, he's actually sitting there with, what's that?
I was going to say, I didn't realize you were going to go on talking, because I was like, okay, thank you so much for joining.
He's just kind of sitting out there with our... I did it again. Sorry,
okay.
You go.
All right. You go, Scott. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he's actually standing out there holding our dinner.
I was going to say, well, thank you so much for joining us. It was a wonderful time. You go have your dinner. Michelle, you go to bed. And I'm going to try to get some writing in before I go to sleep.
Well, listen, ladies, thank you very much. I had a blast. I always have a blast with you. So let me get another book written so we can do this again.
Yes.
Well, you don't need a new book to come onto the show, but
yes,
we will gladly take a new book.
After we stop recording, don't go away right away.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.